Hey there, how's it going, GDQ staff? So this is my submission for Ori and the Blind Forest All Skills. I am the Roos is Loose. I've been running this game for quite a long time, since this game was run with back in the vanilla version of the game on All Cells race between Grimelios and Encamius. This game has appeared at GDQ 3 times. All 3 times has been a fantastic performance. First time was Village showing off this category in All Skills. Second time was an all-cells race between Grimelios and Encamius, like I said, and then at the last AGDQ, Sigma Zen ran the reverse event order category, all 3 of which I've heard nothing but great things about from people who have watched it. It makes for a great show because there's a lot of fantastic movement, a lot of potential for very cool big skips, very flashy movement, a lot of stuff that will just really blow the mind of anybody who's played this game and hasn't seen the speedrun before, because you can just really push your movement up to 11 in this game. So a point I want to make real quick before I get started with the video. This is not my PB video because we just found a very large new reroute a few days ago. This video is my best run of the new route so far. It's still pretty close. It's 11 seconds off of my PB. But I want to show off the new route because more than likely, by the time GDQ rolls around, something more similar to this is what's going to be run, and it has some pretty cool new stuff in it, so that I would much rather show off. So without any further ado, let's get started. So, Ori and the Blind Forest, this is a Metroidvania-style platformer. For everyone I'm sure everyone knows what a Metroidvania is, but basically it means that there's a lot of skills that are going to give us new abilities and ways to move that are going to allow us to come back to old areas and get access to things we didn't have before. Now this game has been routed very extensively, so we're not going to do a whole lot of backtracking, but it's just kind of the general gist of this game, that we're looking to pick up abilities that allow us to move in faster and more interesting ways. So to start off with, all we really have is the ability to do this little hop, and there's just not a whole lot you can do with it. But as the run goes on, we're going to power up into a much more powerful character with very flashy movement. So we're coming up shortly on the very first skill of the game, which is called Sign. This is a little companion that's going to follow along with us, and we can tap the mouse to shoot a laser to do a little bit of damage. It's not particularly effective, it can be upgraded, but we don't do a whole lot of fighting in this run, so we're not really going to see much more of that. Okay, so this is our first skill. That brings me to what the category is. This is all skills, no out of bounds. There are a total of 11 skills in the game, the first one of which you find here, the rest of which are found at trees, which you'll come across and it'll give you a new ability. You can see me using the laser there to kill these frogs. But anyway, so we need to get all 11 of these skills, and we're not allowed to go out of bounds at all until the run is over. Once you get all 11 skills, finish the game, and you're done. So I'm taking an intentional damage boost there, because that's going to bring me to our first kind of unexpected trick of the run, which is called ghost dooring. There's some doors in this game where you put keys into them, and then it has a long animation of opening up. We don't want to watch that, so we can do what's called a ghost door, where you put keys in the door, drop a save, and then find a way to kill yourself very quickly, and when you respawn in, the door will already be open. So I'm kind of priming my health to be as low as possible to make that intentional death come as quickly as I can. You can see when you kill enemies, a couple of different things drop. The orange orbs are experience, which we're going to be trying to get very particular amount, because when you level up in this game, a big wave of energy comes out and does a lot of damage. So we're going to try and time some specific level ups. You see me take the intentional death there, and that door just instantly opens up. So I'm now going to deviate just a little bit and pop up here to get a health cell. You start off with only 3 health in the game. You can't see it right now because we turned the UI off. The reason for that is to skip dialogue. But so we're going to deviate and get that. We're now up to 4 health. The reason for that is at the end of the game, are going to go through a long swimming section through poison water where we need a lot of extra health to be able to survive it. And so taking that health here just makes the game a little bit safer and gives us that health we're going to need for later on in the game. So as I said earlier, enemies drop a couple of things. They drop experience. They can also drop health pickups, which will fill your health back up. They can drop energy, which will refill your energy. Now, energy is like our speed currency in this game. Later on in the game, we're going to get something called charge dashing, which is going to allow Ori to zoom forward, but it costs energy. So energy late in the game is so valuable. It's valuable enough that we're going to be deviating a few times to pick up extra energy in the game. Right now we only have 1. We got a blue cell right at the very beginning. That was our first energy cell, so we only have access to 1. But we're going to be using a lot more later on. We're going to go up to a total of 5 by the end of the run. So this is the wall jump tree. This is our second skill. Wall jump does exactly what you think it does. It allows you to get on the wall, and by pressing jump again, you can hop your way up, as you see me do right here. So there's my second energy cell. I now have 2. Now it's very important that I have 2 because later on there's going to be a trick called walking the frog, or Frankie walk. Basically, when you level up, another side effect is that it refills all of your stats, your health and your energy, and we're going to use that energy to open a door that requires 4 energy to open, but we only have 2. So I'm going to put the 2 in. I'm going to use a frog that I bait over with it. I'm going to bring it over to the door with me, kill it, and use this experience to level up, refill my energy, and allow me to put a total of 4 energy into the door with only 2. That will be coming up a little bit later, though. I just kind of wanted to explain it so I don't get tripped up later and not have enough time to explain the trick. But now we've kind of finished with this area called Sunken Glades. We're now on our way to Blackroot Burrows. Now, Blackroot Burrows is a new area of the game that was added in the Definitive Edition. This game came out originally, and then about a year after, they released a Definitive Edition, which added 2 new skills and a couple of large new areas. This new area right here is the sort of the new added content. Now, you see me doing right here something called Save Anywhere. If you look very closely, you can see Ori is still moving in the background. Basically, I'm glitching the game into allowing me to go back into the game while the level up menu is still open, so I can move and keep that up. The reason I want to do that is because if you spend any of your level up points on that menu while you're able to move around, it has the effect of saving the game. And so what I can do is move in the background and start a cutscene. There was a very long cutscene where that statue was at the entrance. I can start the cutscene and then spend a point to save, exit the game, and reload. And when you come back in, it thinks that the cutscene has already played. It flags the cutscene to be finished. So we don't have to watch it by doing that. So we route our level up points for very specific cutscene skips in this run. So I'm now taking a slight detour here to grab some experience. This orb is worth 100 experience, which is going to trigger a level up. That level up, you'll see the energy wave go out. It's going to kill that slime there for me. The primary reason we're taking that one is because we're going to want that level up point for later. So we've got some tricky little jumps here that are pretty spooky because there's some spikes down there, and we have so few movement abilities that our ability to survive if we go into them is very limited. And so that kind of brings up a point that I really want to emphasize about this game. Why would this game make for an awesome 4-player race? The reason is because there is a lot of flashy movement, a lot of cool tech, but there's a ton of potential for big swings in momentum. So you're probably not going to have a huge blowout because no matter how far ahead you get, you are inches from death all the time in this run. So just because you're ahead does not mean you stay ahead. As a matter of fact, our community ran an all-skills tournament at the beginning of this year, and it was a spectacular success. We had just tons and tons of people watching, tons of people participating. People were like grinding like crazy and leveling up their game. And there's so many good races where it looks like somebody who's the favorite takes the lead, but then they take an unfortunate death and the other person comes back. We just had these constant, very close races. And, you know, a GDQ 4-way race would just be perfect. And we've actually had a 4-player race on the GDQ channel before. GDQ did a hotfix where we had 4 players racing, and it was just fabulous. We had tons of great races on that GDQ hotfix. A lot of people enjoyed watching it. You can see me right here. I'm doing another Save Anywhere. What I'm doing here is I'm skipping a cutscene where this statue kind of rises up and it turns the lights on in this area. So I'm waiting for the statue to rise up. I spend the point, exit, and come back in, and it's going to skip all the rest of that cutscene. You'll see it's suddenly the lights are on like they would have been if I'd watched the whole thing. So now we get to the next and one of my favorite abilities in the game. This is Dash. Now Dash, obviously, makes you dash forward, but it makes you dash forward really fast, which you'll see here shortly. You can see Ori just like zips forward really quickly. This ability just really makes the run so cool and fast. And this isn't the fastest we're going to get either. We're going to have some ways to upgrade the dash ability later on that are going to make it just even crazier. Alright, so you remember that frog walking trick I mentioned earlier. We're coming up to that now. Now there's a couple of different ways to do this. The safe way is going to be by leveling up an ability called Magnet for that cutscene skip earlier that's going to pull energy and experience pickups to you when something dies. Now that's a little bit slower. For my PB attempts, as you're seeing here, I do what's called Magnetless, where instead you take an attack upgrade. and that's going to make it so that his energy and his experience will not magnet to you, so you need to kill him just like right next to you, so very, very tight. Now for marathon safety, we would be taking magnet just to make sure you don't instantly lose the run right here. Now watch, I'm going to wait for the frog to get right next to me and kill it, and its energy and experience grabs me. I'm able to put a total of 4 energy into the door, but we are not out of the woods yet. That's poison water right there, very close to killing me. That frog, if it had landed on me, kills me. Now I'm going to do something called Death Glide, where I do a little glide over these spikes to try and avoid having to slow down and kill them all. We're going to ride this up, get our 3rd energy, and we're still not quite safe yet. We haven't been able to save yet because our energy is very tightly routed here. We don't have a whole lot extra to burn. So now we're getting into an area called Moon Grotto. This is the thing with the frog was a big sequence break, by the way. This is not supposed to come until later in the game. So I'm now going for something called God Cycle here, where you try and get the timing to just barely get into those crushers before you get squished. That requires very tight timing on those horizontal crushers as well. All right, I'm about to set up an intentional death here as well to go store again. I have 1 health, so I can only need 1 hit to be able to do it. So I'm going to go put the keys in the door, save, get killed with the spider's fireball, and we're going on down to our next skill called Double Jump. Double Jump gives you, obviously, twice the jumps. So it's going to really increase our horizontal and vertical momentum, or our horizontal and vertical mobility. We're leveling up another ability to skip a cutscene here, and that's going to cause us to do blind movement, because when the game loads back in, it gives us control of Ori by when we did the save and reload, but it still wants to zoom in on the tree. So off screen for that whole time, we have memorized blind movement to get back out of here as far as possible. And the dangerous stuff is still there. There's still poison water you can fall in, there's still spikes you can hit. So that's a very dangerous area to have to go through, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to do it correctly. Alright, so now we have 4 energy. 4 energy is quite a bit, not quite as much as we're going to want by the end. We're going to want a total of 5. So here's another small sequence break called Grotto Skip. Basically, it wasn't really intended for you to be able to jump off that wall there. You're supposed to go way off to the left and do a whole bunch of stuff in Grotto. We're going to ignore that. We're just going to skip straight up here, do another save and reload. We have an ability called Rekindle now, which allows you to reactivate save points. So we can skip cutscenes without having to spend points if you can get a save really close to the cutscene, start it, and then you do what's called rekindling to reactivate the save point. I get a little trolled right here by this jump. There's a very precise spot you need to get on to be able to get around it as fast as possible, and sometimes if you don't get it right away, it just really gives you some trouble. You can see, because of this huge sequence break, we're actually going through this area backwards. That character in the back that's frozen, that is a character called Gumo, who you'd learn about in the story. But he's all like, we're kind of going through this area backwards, so it kind of breaks his logic. We see all these cutscenes kind of mess up, and we see him frozen in places where he's supposed to trigger a cutscene. You can see him standing there again. It's kind of funny how much you can break this game by doing these sequence breaks. Okay, so we're now going to take a quick diversion over to the right to activate this. This is a teleporter. You can save on it and refill your health, but you can also to teleport between any of them that you've been to activate. We're going to use it later, so I go and get it now while it's not very far out of the way. We're going to use it again later. You can see the water vein there is an item that we've picked up, but because we're still sequence breaking, it's kind of backwards and glitching out with the animation. So we take a time level up there to kill that frog, who would normally be kind of slow, but because we can kill him with the high damage of the level up wave, we're able to get through that very quickly. So we're now coming up to definitely a fan favorite area of the game called the Ginso Tree. This is the first major dungeon. There are 3 in the game. We're only going to be seeing this one, though. We completely skipped the other 2. It's a very vertical dungeon where a lot of your movement is going to be tested, because Ori's abilities are really good at making her move horizontally, but they're not so good at making her move vertically until we get to some stuff later on in the game. So a lot of the platforming here is extremely challenging and very punishing if you make mistakes. You can see another sequence break here. We were actually supposed to come here before the grotto, so Gumo is supposed to be stealing the water vein and then we chase him down. But instead we're doing this after we retrieved it. Okay, so you can see here in the Ginso tree, a lot of like hanging, logs to jump in between, a lot of vertical movement we need to do. And if you fall, you're falling a long way down, losing a lot of time. So this is definitely an area, if somebody takes a bad early death in a race, if the person ahead has any trouble here, that can get them right back in it. So definitely a big opportunity for momentum swing. You can see some tough little cycles you have to try and make here. If your movement is really crisp, you can squeeze a little more out of it than I did there. Definitely a very tight timing to get it though, so if your movement up into it isn't really clean, it can be very risky to go for. So this next room right here is really the only kind of quote-unquote auto-scroller in the game. We have to wait for 2 cycles of this guy's fireballs to be able to break open the little barriers that we need. So this is really the only section of major downtime in the run. It's a very action-packed, thrilling run. You can just constantly have something cool going on screen, especially in a big race. There would just be no shortage of action. So we get to our first little mini boss here. He's got a lot of health. I mentioned earlier that you can either take a damage upgrade or you can get magnet. The advantage of taking the damage upgrade is primarily seen in this boss fight. Because I'm able to shoot 3 shots instead of 2 at a time, I can kill this guy much faster than I would be able to if I had taken magnet, so you can save some time on this mini boss. Coming up next, we've got a couple of keystones to collect that we're going to be using to get through the rest of this dungeon. This part's pretty straightforward platforming, nothing really too hard to worry about. This next room coming up here, though, can be a little tricky because we want to set up a ghost door on that door on the right-hand side. So I want to put the keys in, make the save, and then I have to take some damage to kill myself. Now, optimally done, I would have taken some damage before that room to be able to make it so I only have to take 1 hit to die. But still kind of working out the route because it's so new, so that's stuff that's going to get worked on. Now this right here, this is where the run suddenly gets amazing. This tree is Bash, and as you can see, Bash allows you to grab onto any enemy, projectile, or lantern in the game, and you aim the arrow with your mouse, you fling yourself in one direction and the enemy in the opposite direction. This ability is what makes Ori and the Blind Forest go. It is so cool. And the reason I think it's amazing, particularly for a race, is because most platformers, you go fast by avoiding things. Like, let's say you're playing Mario, you want to jump away from enemies most of the time. Or like, if you get more powerful, it's because you have a fire flower and you can kill stuff from away from them. Ori, on the other hand, because of Bash, you go fast by going towards enemies. So the fastest way to play this game is to constantly be close to death. You want to be like running right into enemies so you can bash off of them and go fast. Bashing is way faster than walking. And there's a really cool thing called bash gliding, where you keep neutral inputs on your keyboard when you let go of the bash, and you will not be decelerated by the game. You'll stay at your maximum bash movement, and that's going to allow for a lot of really cool, floaty, high-flying movement later on in the game, especially once we get Feather and abilities like Charge Jump and Air Dash, which you'll see later. Okay, so the new route primarily diverges right here. The casuals will expect for you to go upwards and do a sequence where you're escaping from water. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to teleport out. Now, I unfortunately make a mistake right here. I teleported to the wrong place. Again, this route is brand new, so my muscle memory not quite up to par yet. So I teleport to the wrong place, teleport to the right place afterwards. Still managed to get a pretty decent time. But that's something that will definitely be ingrained into muscle memory by the time GDQ comes around. Okay, so we're now kind of retreading some old area as Metroidvanias do. Now that we have Bash, we can go get that experience, which is very quick. It gives us a level up, which is going to help us out later. So now I'm going to drop a save and start a cutscene and rekindle it to skip it, and we're going to now go break into the swamp area that we were supposed to get through by doing that water escape I previously mentioned, but by teleporting out and doing it this way, we save a decent bit of time. I'm doing blind movement off screen there again, as you can see, or I guess not see, and we're now going to use this frog right here to break ourselves into swamp. Because I took some damage there, I do need to come back over here and drop a save, because we have to do a damage boost later. That's, again, just unfamiliarity with the brand new route. This literally has been, like, routed. It's just, like, constantly being routed right now. I take some damage and have to, reset it again. This is just, unfortunate problems with new route. Again, will not be an issue by the time GDQ comes around because it will have just been practiced so much more. But this is like a brand new area that we have not been using in the run at all until just now. So we take a damage boost there. We're kind of using this frog to break open this. What we need to do is get him to break this ceiling. So we have a cool little setup here where we kind of juggle this fireball, get him to shoot one just right to break that open. And now we're into swamp with a huge sequence break. And so if you do the water escape, what's supposed to be happening is you're kind of like cleansing the water in the forest. So that water you see there, you should be able to just swim through it, no problem. But because we skipped that, the water is still poisonous. So if you ever touch water for any point on for the rest of this run, you're taking damage. And that's the reason we need to get a bunch of health for later on, is there's a long swimming section we have to survive. So you can see back there was a cool little damage boost through some spikes I used to get up to this. Now this new ability is called Stomp. Stomp is kind of what it sounds like. You press down and you slam into the ground, you do a big AoE of damage, and it'll break stuff under you. Like if there's breakable floors or things, you can use it to break in. And it happens to be your fastest way of moving downwards. There's a tiny little wind up, but it makes you move downwards so quickly that almost any time you need to go downwards, you're going to be stomping. And it unlocks later on something called Stomp Canceling, which I'll explain a little more once we get Charge Dash. But basically it allows us to do a ton of very, very fast movement, which normally would require energy, but we won't be burning the energy because of Stomp Canceling. So we use that frog again to get ourselves this ability cell. That's the next. There's that, and then there's going to be 2 more level up points that we're going to need by the end of the run. So we're almost done collecting stuff other than skills. So we're coming back through this area again, and we're going to do something called Kuro Cutscene Skip. There's a cutscene that wants to play right here, but if you get into just a very precise position where I was standing there and wait for that frog shot and you bash it just right, very, very precise, you grab it and get through without watching it. So now we're going over to collect our last energy cell. This will be the 5th and final one. There's a cool little section of movement to get back out of here. Those are instant kill spikes below me, but if you bait that frog shot and use a stomp to sort of delay yourself in midair, you can hold yourself above it just long enough to bash onto that fireball and get out. So we're using a save and reload to skip yet another cutscene, break open that wall with Stomp, and we're now on to getting, we're about to grab our next ability called Charge Flame. This is sort of like, it's an upgrade to our basic attack where you can hold the button down, charge up your attack, and make a big explosion of damage. We're not really going to use it for its intended purpose other than in one place, but you do need it, 1, to complete the category, and 2, to get the rest of the green tree of level up abilities here, which you'll see. The reason that we want it is we're going to get Air Dash, which allows you to do the dash move in mid-air, and that's going to be very, very good for our ability to move quickly. Now I'm moving in the background with this up so I can get over this cutscene here and then spend those points and exit and reload to skip that cutscene completely. So now you can see I'll start dashing in mid-air. You can dash in air once before you land, or if you bash off of something, it'll refresh your air dash. So combining air dashes and bashes makes for some just really spectacular high-flying air movement. So we got to stomp on this post to open our way into the next big area, which is called Valley of the Winds. It's sort of a hub area for the left side of the map. There's a couple of areas branching off of it, such as Misty Woods, Sorrow Pass, and Forlorn Ruins. We'll be going to Sorrow Pass first, and then Misty Woods. We'll skip Forlorn completely. But first, we need to break our way into the main part of Valley. And we're going to be doing that with a trick called Fast Stompless. Up at the top of this, you're going to see me go up to the very top and aim a fireball from a spider on a very precise angle, and then run away to the right as fast as possible and collect a cell. And the reason I'm doing that is when you run to the right, you're actually unloading a wall that's in the way of the fireball, and the fireball is going to go towards a clump of rocks that we're supposed to break by stomping on it. But by doing it this way, we don't actually need to go in there. It skips a cutscene and walking in there. So you're going to see me rush away, the fireball's heading over there, I've unloaded the wall. So now I come up here and I'm racing to get to the cell before the shot hits. The fireball hits the rocks, breaks it, and now because this cutscene plays, it thinks that I was supposed to have been stomping those rocks, and it's going to try and set me down here. So I get teleported from the cell that I just picked up into here inside Valley, and we're about to grab our next skill, which is Feather. Feather is basically a parachute you can do in midair that slows down your falling pace so we can glide a lot, and it's going to increase our air mobility even more. So we're now getting Charge Dash. Charge Dash is amazing. I'll talk about it some more, but you have to see real quick. It allows us to do a trick called rocket jumping, which is this. You just get an enemy above you and you do a couple of commands at once and you just fly way upwards. And it allows you to just do some insane vertical climbing very quickly. So now this is a trick called Sorrow Bash. I'm supposed to go to Misty Woods and then Forlorn to do what's called Restoring the Wind. And then using the feather, I'm supposed to have these rising wind currents carry me up into here. But that's slow. What we do instead is we use a trick called double bashing, where with a precise one frame command, we are able to do 2 bashes on the same enemy, and so we can fling ourselves and the enemy in the same direction and kind of juggle that ourselves into Sorrow with a frog. So we're now trying to get this frog up to the top of Sorrow Pass, and I'm doing a trick called Crazy Juggle. Unfortunately, I kind of got messed up by this this slime's projectile over here, and it messed it up. So typically what I do there is called Crazy Juggle, where you're doing some charge dashes to the frog and canceling it with a stomp, and then canceling the stomp by grabbing him with a bash all the way up to the top. Now there's a backup here that's not too bad. I'm just going to block the laser with this, and I'm going to use this frog instead. So we get him into the shaft, and I'm going to finish up by doing the rest of get this frog all the way up by Crazy Juggling. This is a very fast but very dangerous trick, because if you mess up the stomp cancel on that, you'll hit the frog with the charge dash and it'll do damage to him, and he won't have enough health to make it all the way to the top. So we use him to break the roof and rocket jump off him again to get to the very top of the shaft, and we get what's called the Sunstone. This is the key to the final dungeon where we're going to end the game. Now we're actually going to end up skipping the whole dungeon, but we do need to get the key to be able to get into it. It's possible to get in with some out of boundses without Sunstone, but the category is all skills no out of bounds, so obviously we have to go in through an intended route. So we get this. There's a long cutscene we don't want to watch, so we spend a point to save and exit it. So now we're going to go back down, and we're going to head towards an ability called Charge Jump. Charge Jump is pretty cool. It lets you hold up to start to charge up your charge up a big jump basically, and you jump and you'll go up really high. And it's got some cool applications for vertical movement later, which you'll see. So we're just about to go over and get the tree right now. We just do another ghost store to get our way in here and get the charge jump tree. So now we have to go to Misty Woods, which my personal absolute favorite part of the run. The movement in there is insane. We have almost all of our skills at this point, so our mobility is fantastic. Misty Woods is very dangerous and very tight spike corridors that do a ton of damage. I have 4 HP, and spikes I'll do 3. Everything in Misty Woods does 3 damage, so I can only afford 1 mistake in the entirety of Misty Woods. So we got to get back out of Sorrow Pass here. You can see how fast stomps allow us to move downwards. So we're going to come back out where we came in with Sorrow Bash, use this bird to do sort of an upside down rocket jump to get in here very quickly, and now we enter my favorite area, Misty Woods. Now this area works kind of like the Lost Woods in a Zelda game does, where it's the terrain is actually going to change based on what we've done. There are 4 keystones in here we need to grab, and if we every time we grab one, the terrain will change, and you'll have to kind of backtrack, but things will have changed when you get there. So we're almost to our first keystone. You can see I came in from the right, I grabbed the keystone, and I now exit from the right, and Misty Woods has moved. So now we can go further in. You can see how narrow and spiked all these corridors are, and just the movement is just absolutely thrilling to watch, I think, because like it's just, you get to just glide and double jump and charge dash, etc. Oh, so let me talk about charge dash some more. When you see Ori rush to an enemy like that, that is charge dashing. It's you spend an energy and you rush towards a target. You can either rush straight forward if there's nothing around, or you'll rush to your nearest target. Now, it costs an energy, obviously, and we only have 5, so how am I doing this so often? The answer is what's called canceling. If the charge dash does not complete, you get the energy refunded back to you, and you can cancel it either by bashing the thing that you charge dash to, or by stomping before it's finished. And so I'll point that out as I'm doing it. Right there, you see I stomp before it finishes, so I got that energy back. There will be another one right here. So I charge dashed to it and I bashed it and I got the energy back. Same there, that's also getting energy back. Unfortunately, I messed up my rocket jump there, so I kind of hit the spikes and I need to do a different setup to get my way up here. I'm going to get another keystone here, so that's going to change our terrain once more. So right there, I did what's called a stomp cancel over the spikes there. If I'd messed that up and stomped down into it, that's just instant death. Since I hit the spikes earlier from the failed rocket jump, I'm at 1 HP right now, so any mistakes will kill me and send me all the way back to the last tree. And I didn't mention what it was because I was explaining charge dashes, but we got a tree earlier that's climb. Climb allows you to just kind of cling onto walls and climb your way up. It's not too useful except for one trick that's going to come up at the very end of the run, which I'll explain when we get there. But now we collect our last keystone, and now we can exit Misty Woods and move on. You know, the only reason we actually came here is we needed that climb tree. If it weren't for that, we'd be able to skip this area entirely, because what casually this area does is it gets you the key to go into Forlorn Ruins, and Forlorn Ruins lets you get the wind restored, which lets you get into Sorrow Pass that we did earlier. But because of Sorrow Bash, we don't actually need that. The only thing we need here is the climb tree. So we've got a little mini boss here. You can make pretty quick work of him with charge jumping into him and then releasing a charge flame to reflect his own projectile back at him. We take a timed level up here off of his experience to refill all of our health and energy for kind of the last charge towards the end of the game. We got one more door here. The reason we don't ghost door this one is there's not really a convenient place for us to kill ourselves to the point where it would save any time. But once you go through there, the terrain changes to allow us to exit Misty Woods. We do a bunch of cool charge dash and bashes to get back out of here. Very quick, fluid movement, I think. Very exciting to watch. So now we come back across Valley of the Wind, and we're going to go towards a teleporter right here. And we're going to go back towards the very beginning of the game. You remember in Blackroot Burrows, we went and got the dash tree right at the beginning. We're not going to be going very close by there, but we're going to continue further down into that area instead. And we're going to get the last ability we need, which is called Light Grenade. Light Grenade is a little burst of energy you can throw, and it'll break some things, it'll do some damage. It's not very useful because it's just not a very efficient use of energy compared to charge dashing, and we don't need it for accessing anything important in this run. So it's only used on the very last trick of the game, which I'll talk about when we get closer to it. Now this area we're trying to get very clean movement through here so we can make that laser cycle, and that's gonna, by making that laser cycle as quickly as possible, it lets us get through some lets us do some very cool movement on the way back out of here. So we're skipping this one cutscene here. It's a very long cutscene. Very, very good that we can skip it because it's like 2 minutes long at least. We come to our very final tree here, Light Grenade. So we now have all the skills. All we have left to do is go complete the game. So we're going to come back out, go to that teleporter, and we're going to teleport to the teleporter underneath the Ginso tree that we got quite a bit earlier. But we've got some cool movement to get before then. You can see that laser, because we were able to get into it earlier, we can now make this cycle, get a nice little rocket jump here, and get back out of it this way. There's a way to do the rocket jump where you don't hit that roof there. Unfortunately, I missed it, but it's not a big deal. So here's the teleporter we want. We do want to grab this health cell right here, though. Like I said, we need to get extra health to survive a swim at the end. So I'm now at 5 health. We're going to teleport to Swamp. I'm going to end up getting a 6th health as well. It is possible to do the swim with 5 HP, but it is very, very, very tight. So for marathon safety, it would definitely be worth going for 6. And honestly, even in PB attempts, it's not that bad. It only costs you a couple seconds, and it provides a ton of extra safety. So here we're going to go towards the last area of the game, which is Horu Fields, and it's going to get us. We're going to go towards the final dungeon and finish things up. I stomped a little early there. I was supposed to do it on the ground there so I could break that crystal and get some energy, but mistimed it a little bit. But no big deal. We're now on our way into the final area. This is where the last health cell we're going to get, the 6th one. You can see that's not too much time to go and get it. And we're going to now work our way across kind of some lava fields into the final dungeon. Now, there's going to be a big door that we're going to put that keystone in that we got earlier at the top of the mountain, and once we go in, we're going to allow the game to autosave like it does when you enter the dungeon, and then we're going to exit, and when you reload back into the game, you can do a wrong warp by pressing up on the exact frame the game loads in. So this is another opportunity for people behind to catch up, because this is a true one-frame trick, 60 FPS one-frame trick, where you have to press up on the exact frame that you come back into the game. So you'll see me wait for the game to load. As soon as I come back in, press up, and you wrong warp to the bottom of the dungeon. We've skipped the entirety of Horu like that, and we now go to the final area. So you activate this, and the villain of the game, who we've seen very little of in the speedrun, this giant owl called Kuro, is going to be chasing us through these spikes in this lava. A very, very cool conclusion to the game. And we have to run away from it before we get caught, and don't fall in any lava, don't fall in any spikes. And now we even have to deal with poison water, which we used to not in the old route. But you can see some cool stomp cancels to try and get through this area as fast as possible. Try and preserve our energy on these charge dashes as much as possible. A lot of tough cycles like that lava right there. If you can go quickly, you don't have to wait for it. And we can get around to this one, and so we're almost done here. We've just got this kind of little back and forth section, and then the poison water swim. This is the scary part right here, because this water will deal damage to you as long as you're in it. We can only take 5 hits, and if you have 5 HP, you can only take 4. Very, very tight. So we, by charge jumping there, we unloaded Koro from the last area to give us time to do this trick right here. This is called Grenade Jump. And basically what I'm doing is holding onto the wall, and I'm throwing a grenade and jumping off of it at the same time, and it allows me to rocket over a cutscene and skip straight into the end here. That is also frame perfect, another good place for people to catch up and make the race exciting. So we skip over that cutscene, and it kind of bypasses half of the final cutscene and lets us, just cut about 35 seconds out of it. So now we get to the very end. Time is going to be called at the very last input. We're going to gain control of another character who we didn't see at all in the speedrun called Naru. You're going to walk to the right, and when you pass behind a tree, you lose control, and that's when time is called. You'll see in just a few seconds when it is, and it's going to be time now, 33:47. So my actual PB as of right now is a 33:36. With the new route, that can be improved greatly. I expect all the runners will be able to put up runs definitely a little bit faster than this. I'd guess you'll see some 30s and 31s than 32s in a race by the time it comes around. So like a 35, 36-ish estimate could probably be pretty safe. Maybe if you want to really go safe, go up to a 37. But this run, as you can see, just like, it's hard to even keep up with the commentary because there's just so much cool stuff coming at you all the time. There's sick movement, there's sick tricks, just fantastic stuff all the time. It's a great length. It's only about 30 minutes, so people who are not interested aren't getting bored because it's very long. People who are interested get enough of the run. They get over 30 minutes. It's kind of in that sweet spot of length with a lot of very cool tech. Very beautiful game, as you can see. Wonderful music. We've been listening to the soundtrack for it in the background right now while the VOD was muted, so we didn't hear my stream commentary. I can't say enough good things about this game. It's wonderful. I personally got into speedrunning because of seeing this at GDQ, and I know other people have as well. Like, every time this game appears at a GDQ, we get a ton of new people in the community talking about how much they loved it. So I really think this would be a fantastic 4-player race at GDQ to show off. And I hope you guys agree. Alright, thank you very much for watching my submission. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This has been The Roost is Loose.